I'm Jonathan Casciani, and I'm a graphic designer, and my presentation is mostly not about graphic design at all. And the other thing is I've written my notes on my BlackBerry, and so I'm not actually reading a text message, I'm just reading my notes at the same time. So, but I only just realised that might look completely weird before I start this. So. About a couple of years ago, me and Ollie started out on a bit of a new venture, which was to design a range of screen prints, and was really to turn our graphic skills into another product. And my kind of resolution is partly about that. We tested it out kind of last year, and it's gone really well. And part of the resolution is to become sort of more inspired by British design and manufacture and really understand its kind of heritage. Next slide. My thoughts about this is really about the sort of the global economy is obviously facing massive change at the moment, and we need to start making things again. Basically, we don't produce anything, and if we don't do it, we're going to all be stuffed. So British design heritage is all about making and making and designing being one thing. So I pulled together some kind of slides and interesting things and things that I kind of love that I'm kind of looking at the moment. I want to be inspired by this year. So next one. Considering sort of how something is made, where it's made and where it's sold is essential for the environment. This is a picture of this old lady here isn't my granny, it's actually Eileen Gray. And she's a British designer, somebody you might know, but she was working in the 20s and 30s. She was a really early kind of modernist designer. And when you look back at her stuff, a lot of the stuff that's kind of being produced now is kind of inspired by this person who was working quite quietly and actually didn't produce an enormous body of work, but it's quite an exciting person to look at. Next one. This chap here is a guy called Robin Day, and he's 95, and he produced a chair called the Hilly Stack chair, which is this one here on the left-hand side, and that basically went through various different kind of evolutions and actually turned into a plastic chair that probably everyone sat on at school and basically became one of the most significant products. But one of the things that I find really inspiring about it is his design, is its kind of simplicity, its kind of sculptural form, and the fact that he's a designer who understands kind of craft, he understands manufacturing, understands design. Next one. This is another guy called Ernest Race, and he's a guy who kind of, in a way, straddles the gap between kind of British sort of kind of tradition and design. This is one of his pieces from the 40s, which is kind of interesting because it's actually based on a traditional English chair called the Windsor, but it's obviously manufactured in a completely different way, and it's still kind of informing kind of people now. It's still informing me, and I don't actually know a lot about this guy. I just actually spent a lot of time on eBay trying to buy stuff for my house, and consequently became interested in this. But I'm finding it very interesting. This guy here is somebody called David Mellor, who we had a chance to do some work with a couple of years ago. And he's a really interesting guy from a manufacturing point of view because he was very entrepreneurial. Basically, back in the sort of the mid-60s, he set up his own design practice, which was not just designing stuff, but he made it and he distributed it. He did everything. He branded it, made it, distributed it, sold it, and he controlled the whole process, and he continued that throughout his whole life. And now his son runs the business. And he had a business model which survived loads of economic change. And is a really inspiring person to sort of look at because he's not only proved the business model, but he's proved it through design, which is fundamentally based on really kind of pure, simple principles of kind of quality, of basically refining things down to its sort of its sole purpose really. And there's no frivolity about it, but it has an elegance and a beauty about it. And we've produced a couple of prints which are available from our website because we've got about 300 sitting in our office, so if anyone wants to buy one. Next slide. This guy here is a guy called Arno Goldfinger, who's, I think, looks like he's about to bully these children. But he's an interesting fellow. And I went to this guy's house sort of a couple of years ago, and he's got a house in Hampstead, and he's actually famous for building massive tower blocks that are really ugly in London that everybody used to hate, but they've suddenly become trendy and really expensive. But his house, every designer should go and have a look at, because it's beautiful, but it's kind of strangely modest in scale for an architect of of his kind of sort of renown and kind of grandeur. And it's a truly kind of loved space as well. And you could tell that he loved his kind of craft and he loved his art, and it came through really from his living environment. And that's something I want to do, is develop, my house to be something that has that kind of feeling. Next one. This is my favourite jumper, John Smedley, and it's a bit of a weird one, but when I first started working, I shared an office with a guy called John Rowley, actually, who was a fashion designer, kindly gave me some studio space for free, and I got chatting with him, and he compared a John Smedley jumper to a Mies van der Rohe piece of architecture. And what he was trying to say was that if you get the engineering of something right, and you refine the materials, the aesthetics will kind of speak for themselves. And this is something I tried to sort of hold in mind, and at the time I thought he was a wanker and just really overblowing the kind of the whole jumper thing, but I now understand it, and I now buy the jumpers. And so in a sense, it's kind of a little bit of inspiration I try and carry around with me every day. So, next one. This has got nothing to do with British design whatsoever, but I just really like it. It's a guy called Max Huber, who is probably one of the most exciting Swiss kind of graphic designers. And what's kind of great about it is it's just, his design is really fun. And he was still a corporate designer, but he wasn't driven by sort of, brand values, or it wasn't about control. It's just about producing something exciting and interesting and kind of lively. And I think there's another image, actually, of this. Yeah, and here's another example of it. And I think I want to get back to a bit of that. If I do commercial work, I want it to be kind of fresh, with a kind of and inspired in the same way that this is, really. This place is Royal Festival Hall in London, which is designed by a guy called Peter Morrow. And I've kind of got a special relationship with this because I did quite a lot of work for the Playhouse in Nottingham, it was the same architect. And I think the point of this is everything in this building is kind of designed, right? And it's all designed within the kind of the same vision, not by the same person, but by collective vision, by collaboration. And there's lots of different specialists who worked on lots of different areas. So he designed the building with obviously a team of architects. Robin Day designed the furniture. Lucien Day did fabric designs and kind of carpet designs, and it was just a brilliant collaboration. But a collaboration of specialists and people who are really talented. And that's kind of something I want to work more with.